The morning shift began like any other on Nexus Prime. The massive space station floated in the void between star systems, its lights blinking steadily as ships came and went. Inside the main council chamber, delegates from across the galaxy took their seats for the monthly meeting. Vorthak, the tall, blue-skinned Zeltharian who led the council, checked his notes one more time. Today they would discuss trade routes, defense budgets, and a new mining dispute on the rim worlds. Standard business for the Galactic Council. But something felt wrong. The human section sat empty. 23 chairs that should have held Earth's delegation remained vacant. Vorthak frowned and activated his communication device. "Where are the humans?" he asked his assistant. "Unknown, speaker. They have not responded to our calls." This was strange. Humans were never late to council meetings. Daeho, their senior diplomat, always arrived early. The man had perfect attendance for over 5 years. Hyejin, their military representative, usually spent the pre-meeting time reviewing security reports with other delegates. Vorthak decided to begin anyway. Perhaps the humans had been delayed. "The council will come to order," he announced. His voice echoed through the chamber as hundreds of beings from dozens of species settled into silence. The first item was the Kepler trade agreement. Daeho was supposed to present the final terms today. Without him, they could not proceed. Vorthak moved to the next item, then the next. Every major issue on the agenda somehow involved human input. An hour passed. Still no humans. "Speaker," called out Ambassador Grextel from the Catherian section. "Should we attempt to contact Earth directly?" Vorthak nodded. His assistant tried multiple channels. The response came quickly, but it was not what anyone expected. A cold, mechanical voice filled the chamber. "Humanity has withdrawn from galactic affairs. Do not attempt further communication." The council erupted. Voices in dozens of languages filled the air as delegates tried to understand what they had just heard. Vorthak called for order, but the chaos continued. "This must be a mistake," Grextal said. "Humans do not just leave. They have been council members for over 200 years. Others agreed. The draconian representative stood up, his scales shifting color with agitation. "Perhaps they face some internal crisis. We should send aid." But when they tried to contact human colonies, they received the same message. Every human world, every human ship, every human station across the galaxy had gone silent. The only response was that same cold voice telling them to stay away. By the end of the day, the truth became clear. Humanity had vanished from galactic society overnight. Not just their government, but their entire civilization had cut all ties with the outside universe. The immediate effects were obvious. 3 major trade deals collapsed without human signatures. The joint patrol fleet protecting the outer rim lost half its ships when human vessels suddenly departed. Financial markets crashed as investors panicked about the sudden disappearance of humanity's massive economic presence. Vorthak stood before the emergency session that evening, looking out at faces filled with confusion and fear. "We must remain calm," he said. "Perhaps the humans will return soon with an explanation." But in his heart he doubted it. The withdrawal had been too complete, too organized. This was not a sudden decision. Someone had planned this for a long time. 3 days later, Captain Thexara of the Draconian fleet brought disturbing news. His ship had approached the Sol system hoping to find answers. What he found instead were defenses beyond anything they had seen before. "Automated systems warned us away," he reported to the emergency council session. But they were not the same technology humans used before. These weapons were more advanced than anything in our databases. "Did you try to communicate?" Vorthak asked. "Yes." The response was simple. "Turn around or be destroyed." We chose to turn around. Similar reports came from across human space. Every system humanity controlled was now protected by mysterious new defenses. Ships that tried to approach were warned once, then disabled if they continued. No one was killed, but the message was clear. Stay away. The economic damage spread quickly. The Rimward Commerce Guild, which depended on human-maintained trade routes, saw their profits drop by 60% in a week. Smaller species that relied on human technology for basic needs faced immediate shortages. On Zeltharia Prime, riots broke out when food shipments stopped arriving. The planet's agriculture depended on fertilizers that only human factories could produce efficiently. Without those supplies, crops began failing. The Outer Rim worlds suffered worst of all. Human fortress planets had protected them from raiders and pirates for generations. Now those protections were gone. Within days, the first attacks began. Small colonies found themselves defenseless against ships that no longer feared human retaliation. In the council chamber, tempers ran high. Some blamed humanity for the crisis. Others defended them, saying there must be a good reason for their actions. Arguments broke out daily as the situation grew worse. "They have abandoned us," declared the Vaxian ambassador. "After all we did, together, they left without warning. The humans are not cruel," Grextal replied. "There must be something we do not understand." But understanding seemed impossible. Every attempt to penetrate human space failed. Every message went unanswered. Humanity had built a wall around themselves and refused to explain why. As the first month ended, Vorthak realized they faced a new reality. The Galactic Council had been built around human participation. Their diplomats solved conflicts. Their traders kept goods flowing. Their military kept the peace. Without them, the careful balance that had maintained galactic civilization was falling apart. Standing in his office, looking out at the stars, Vorthak wondered what could have driven humanity to such extreme action. They had seemed happy in galactic society. Their people had friends among every species. Their culture had spread to 1,000 worlds, yet they had left it all behind without a single word of explanation. In the distance, he could see human space through the observation window. Those stars still shone, but now they felt cold and distant. Somewhere out there, humanity continued to exist. But for the rest of the galaxy, it was as if they had simply vanished from existence. The price of their departure was already becoming clear. The question that haunted Vorthak was simple. Why? Had they chosen to pay it? 3 months had passed since humanity disappeared, and the galaxy was dying slowly. Mira stood in what used to be the busiest trading hub in the Zeltharian system. Now the vast station felt like a tomb. Half the docking bays sat empty. The other, half held ships that could not complete their routes because human space blocked the fastest paths between star systems. She watched a Vaxian cargo hauler depart through the observation window. The ship would take the long route around human territory, adding 3 weeks to what used to be a 5-day journey. The extra fuel costs would bankrupt the small company that owned it. "Another one gone," said Kyle, her Zeltharian assistant. His blue skin had taken on a pale shade that meant stress among his people. "That makes 57 businesses that have closed this month." Mira nodded sadly. The numbers were getting worse every day. Trade through this system had dropped by 80%. The Rimward Commerce Guild, which had operated here for centuries, was discussing complete shutdown. It was not just about blocked routes. Humanity had built the hyperspace beacons that made fast travel possible. Those beacons still worked, but they were locked. Human computers controlled them, and those computers would not respond to outside signals. Ships could still travel without the beacons, but it took much longer and used much more fuel. Small trading companies could not afford the extra costs. Only the largest corporations could survive, and even they were struggling. The communication system chimed. Mira activated it, hoping for good news. Instead, she saw the worried face of Admiral Kexathara from the Draconian fleet. "The situation in the Outer Rim is getting worse," the Admiral reported. "We lost 3 more colonies yesterday." Mira felt her stomach drop. The pirate attacks had been increasing every week since humanity vanished. Human patrol fleets used to keep the raiders in check. Without that protection, the pirates grew bold. "How many dead?" she asked. 43 civilians on Kepler 7. The raiders took everything they could carry and destroyed the rest. Kexthara's scales shifted to a dark red color that meant anger. "My ships are spread too thin. We cannot protect everyone." This was the problem everywhere. Human military forces had filled gaps that other species never realized existed. Now those gaps were becoming deadly holes in galactic security. The worst part was that they had tried to fill those gaps themselves. The remaining council members had organized joint patrols and shared defense agreements. But coordination was terrible without human leadership. Species that had worked together for centuries under human guidance now argued about everything. On Kythera Prime, Dr. Velthari faced a different kind of crisis. The research facility around him buzzed with desperate activity as scientists tried to solve problems that used to have simple solutions. The fungal infection is spreading faster, his assistant reported. 3 more agricultural worlds have reported crop failures. Velthari studied the data with growing despair. The solution was simple. They needed the antifungal treatments that human biotechnology produced. But those factories were in human space, and human space was forbidden. What about the substitute compounds? He asked. 40% effective at best. The human version was 97% effective. His assistant's tentacles drooped with exhaustion. At this rate, we will have food shortages across 15 systems within 6 months. Similar crises were developing everywhere. Human medicine kept 3 different plagues under control. Human technology maintained the power grids on dozens of worlds. Human agricultural techniques fed billions of beings. All of that knowledge existed in databases and textbooks. But practical application was different from theory. The other species were learning this painful lesson every day. Ambassador Grextal sat in his office, surrounded by reports of mounting disasters. Each day brought new evidence of how deeply humanity had been woven into galactic civilization. The latest report came from the edge of known space. Long-range sensors had detected movement in the deep dark, the region beyond explored territory. Something large was stirring out there. For 2 centuries, humanity had maintained watch stations on the galactic rim. Those stations monitored for threats from the unknown regions of space. Now the stations were dark. Their human crews vanished, along with everyone else. The sensor readings are unclear, reported Captain Yexmol, but the computer estimates at least 1,000 large objects moving toward inhabited space. Grextal felt a chill run through his body. 1,000 objects could mean many things, but none of them were good. How long until they reach the outer colonies? If they maintain current speed, approximately 18 months. 18 months to prepare for an unknown threat without human help, while the galaxy fell apart from internal problems. Grextal began to understand why some of his colleagues had started drinking heavily. The economic collapse was accelerating. Without human credit guarantees, the galactic banking system became unstable. Currency exchange rates fluctuated wildly as species hoarded resources. Trade wars broke out between former allies as everyone tried to secure what they needed for survival. The Zeltharian hegemony, humanity's closest partners, faced complete economic collapse. Their entire civilization had been built around trade networks that human hyperspace technology made possible. Now their ships crawled between stars at sublight speeds while their competitors found alternate routes. Thousands of Zeltharian families lost their life savings as transport companies went bankrupt. Unemployment reached levels not seen in centuries. Protests erupted in major cities as citizens demanded their government do something about the crisis. But what could they do? Military action against human space was impossible. Their automated defenses were too strong. Diplomatic contact was futile. The humans simply refused to communicate. Some species tried to reverse engineer human technology. Teams of the galaxy's best scientists studied captured human equipment, trying to understand how it worked. The results were disappointing. Human technology was more advanced than anyone had realized. Their computers used principles that other species barely understood. Even worse, human systems seemed designed to resist outside interference. Critical components would shut down or even self-destruct if anyone tried to modify them. It was as if humanity had planned for this situation. That thought troubled many leaders. The withdrawal had been too smooth, too complete. Humanity had not simply decided to leave one day. They had prepared for this departure over a long period of time. But why? What could have driven them to abandon everything they had built with Their galactic neighbors? As the third month ended, Vorthak called an emergency council session. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered to discuss their deteriorating situation. "We face a choice," he told the assembled delegates. "We can continue trying to survive without humanity, or we can take more aggressive action to force communication." The debate was heated. Some species wanted to organize a military expedition to break through human defenses. Others insisted that would make the situation worse. A few suggested they should focus on adapting to life without human assistance. In the end, they voted to try both approaches. A joint military force would attempt to penetrate human space and demand answers. Meanwhile, emergency programs would help species develop alternatives to human technology and services. But as the delegates left the station, many wondered if they were too late. The galaxy was unraveling faster than they could repair it. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the rim, unknown threats were moving closer every day. The price of humanity's departure was becoming clear. The question was whether the galaxy could afford to pay it. 6 months after humanity vanished, Admiral Kexithera led the largest military fleet ever assembled by the Galactic Council. 200 ships from 15 different species formed a massive armada, approaching the edge of human space. The Admiral stood on the bridge of her flagship watching the tactical display with grim determination. Behind her, officers from across the galaxy worked together in an uneasy alliance. Zeltharians operated communication systems while Draconians managed weapons controls. Catherians handled sensors as Vaxians coordinated shield harmonics. It should have been an inspiring sight. The galaxy species united in common purpose. But Kexithera knew the truth. This cooperation was born from desperation, not friendship. Without humanity to mediate their differences, old rivalries had started emerging again. Approaching the Sol system boundary, reported Commander Thexnall from the sensor station, human automated defenses are powering up. The tactical display, lit up with red warning markers, weapons platforms that had not existed 6 months ago appeared on their sensors. The humans had been busy during their isolation. "All ships, this is Admiral Kexithera," she broadcast to the fleet. "Remember, our mission is communication, not conquest. We are here to demand answers, not start a war." The response came immediately. The same cold, mechanical voice that had haunted the galaxy for months filled the communication channels. "Unknown. Fleet, you are entering restricted space. Turn back immediately or face defensive action." "This is Admiral Kexithera of the Galactic Council Fleet," she replied. "We demand to speak with human leadership. The galaxy faces crisis because of your withdrawal. People are dying. Humanity has withdrawn from galactic affairs. Do not attempt further communication. This is your final warning." The Admiral gritted her teeth. "All ships, advance in formation. Raise shields, but do not target their installations." What happened next shattered everything the galaxy thought. It knew about human military capability. The human defense systems activated with terrifying efficiency. Energy beams that seemed to bend space itself reached out across impossible distances. Council ships found their shields failing instantly, their weapons offline, their engines dead. But nobody died. Every shot was precisely calibrated. Systems were disabled, not destroyed. Crews were left helpless but unharmed. Within 10 minutes, the entire fleet was dead in space, completely at the mercy of human automated defenses. "All ships are functional," reported the damage control officer. "Weapons, shields, and engines are offline, but life support and basic systems remain operational." Admiral Kexithera stared at the display in shock. The humans could have destroyed them easily. Instead, they had delivered a message. "We could kill you all, but we choose not to." Rescue ships arrived 3 days later to tow the disabled fleet home. The humiliation was complete. The galaxy's combined military might had been swatted aside, like insects by automated systems. But the real shock came from the technology analysis. Chief Engineer Morgan studied the weapon signatures with growing disbelief. "These readings do not match any known human technology," he reported to the emergency council session. The energy patterns suggest manipulation of fundamental forces. We barely understand. How is that possible? Asked Vorthak. 6 months ago, humans used the same technology as everyone else. They did not, Morgan replied grimly. Our analysis suggests they have been developing this technology for decades, possibly centuries. They deliberately hid their true capabilities from us. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. Humanity had been far more advanced than anyone realized. They had chosen to appear equal to other species, while secretly developing capabilities that made them nearly godlike. Why hide such power? And why reveal it only to drive everyone? Away on the research station Kepler Deep, Dr. Jung sat alone in what used to be a joint human-alien research facility. The human scientists had vanished 6 months ago, leaving behind only empty laboratories and encrypted computer systems. But Jung was persistent. She had spent her entire career studying human technology, trying to understand how their minds worked. Slowly, painfully, she had begun to crack their security systems. The first breakthrough came from studying abandoned human personal logs. Dr. Junwoo had been her research partner for 5 years. His encrypted journal contained references to something called Project Sanctuary. Other humans had mentioned the same project in their personal files. References to necessary preparations and the coming darkness appeared repeatedly. But the details were always vague, hidden behind multiple layers of security. Then she found Dr. Nari's laboratory. The facility was hidden in an asteroid belt, disguised as a mining operation. It had taken Jung months to locate it using clues from Junwoo's notes. When she finally accessed the main computer, what she found changed everything. Historical analysis confirms cyclic pattern, read one of Nari's research logs. Advanced civilizations disappear every 50,000 years. Archaeological evidence suggests external intervention. Jung read the files with growing horror. Human researchers had spent centuries studying ancient ruins across the galaxy. The evidence painted a terrifying picture of galactic history. Every 50,000 years, advanced civilizations simply vanished, not through war or plague or natural disaster, but through what the humans called systematic removal. Something came from beyond known space and erased any species that had become too successful. The humans called it the final convergence. According to their research, the next convergence was approaching. The signs were already visible to those who knew what to look for. The movement of objects in deep space, subtle changes in the cosmic background radiation, ancient automated systems beginning to activate after millennia of dormancy. But the most disturbing discovery was in the final research notes. The convergence specifically targeted civilizations that were interconnected and dependent on each other. Species that relied too heavily on cooperation became vulnerable to systematic destruction. Hypothesis confirmed, Nari had written. Galactic civilization as currently structured cannot survive convergence. Too much interdependence. Single point of failure will cascade into total collapse. Jung understood what this meant. Humanity had not abandoned the galaxy. They had been trying to save it. By removing themselves from galactic society, they forced other species to become independent. The current crisis, as terrible as it was, might be necessary preparation for something far worse. She tried to contact the Council with her discovery, but the communication system was down. Pirate attacks had destroyed 3 relay stations in the past week. The breakdown of galactic infrastructure was accelerating. On the outer rim, the first refugees began arriving from the deep space colonies. They brought stories of massive objects emerging from the void between galaxies, things that blotted out stars and moved with impossible purpose. Captain Rexiol had been patrolling the frontier when his sensors detected the first incursion. What he saw haunted his dreams. They are not ships, he reported to his commander. They are something else, the size of small moons, but they move like living things. My computer cannot identify their composition. Long-range scans showed hundreds of these objects moving steadily toward inhabited space. They seemed to ignore the laws of physics, traveling faster than light without using any known propulsion system, and they were heading directly for the most populated regions of the galaxy. The Council received Rexiol's report during another emergency session. By now, these meetings happened almost daily as new crises emerged faster than they could be resolved. Estimated time until arrival? Asked Vorthak. 12 months, replied Admiral Kexthera. Maybe less if they accelerate. 12 months to prepare for an unknown threat. 12 months while the galaxy fell apart from internal collapse. 12 months without humanity's help. Some council members demanded another attempt to contact the humans. Others insisted they should focus on preparing their own defenses. Arguments broke out as fear and desperation overrode diplomatic courtesy. In the chaos, nobody noticed the quiet Etherian delegate accessing the Council's archaeological database. Velthari had been researching the ancient ruins that Dr. Nari's files had mentioned. What he found confirmed his worst fears. The ruins were everywhere, hidden beneath newer construction or buried by time. Every major civilization in galactic history had left similar remains, and every one of them had vanished at the same point in their development. The pattern was clear to anyone willing to see it. The galaxy was caught in an endless cycle of growth and destruction. Civilizations rose, became interdependent, and then disappeared when the next convergence arrived. But this time, humanity had broken the pattern. By removing themselves, they had forced the galaxy to develop the independence it needed to survive. The question was whether they had acted in time. 1 year after humanity's departure, Dr. Velthari stood before the emergency council session with evidence that would change everything. The chamber was half empty now. 3 species had withdrawn from the council as their civilizations collapsed. Others attended by hologram because travel had become too dangerous. The Devourer fleets had consumed 5 star systems. Billions of beings were dead or missing. Refugee ships crowded every safe harbor while military forces struggled to maintain even basic security. The pattern is clear, Velthari announced, activating the holographic display. Every 50,000 years, galactic civilization is reset. We have been living in the current cycle for 49,800 years. Ancient ruins appeared in the display, sites from across the galaxy that few had paid attention to before. Each showed the same story. Advanced civilizations that suddenly vanished at the height of their power. The humans knew, Velthari continued. Their archaeological teams discovered this pattern decades ago. They tried to warn us indirectly, but we ignored the signs. Speaker Vorthak studied the evidence with growing dread. What exactly are these convergences? Based on human research, external forces that appear every 50,000 years to eliminate advanced civilization. The purpose is unknown, but the method is consistent. They target the most successful, most interconnected species first. The display showed simulation models based on human calculations. The convergence entities, whatever they were, would arrive in force within months. Their first targets would be the most developed worlds, the ones with the strongest trade networks and military alliances. The humans realized something crucial, Velthari explained. Galactic civilization as it existed was vulnerable because of its interdependence. When they remove key species, everything collapses. Council members began to understand. The current crisis was not random destruction. It was systematic preparation for what was coming. Commander Dexara from the Outer Rim brought the latest tactical reports. The Devourer advance forces had been probing galactic defenses for months, but these were not the main threat. Our long-range sensors have detected massive objects entering the galaxy, she reported. Structures the size of planets moving faster than anything we can track. Conservative estimates suggest they will reach core worlds within 8 months. 8 months. The timeline was accelerating. Ambassador Grextal had been investigating the abandoned human research station that Dr. Jung discovered. Deep in the facility's central computer, he found the files that explained everything. Project Sanctuary was humanity's response to the convergence threat, he reported. They calculated that galactic civilization had less than 2 years before the next reset. Standard defensive preparations would not be sufficient. The human research was extensive. They had studied every previous convergence, analyzed the attack patterns, and reached a terrifying conclusion. The convergence entities were not random destroyers. They were intelligent, systematic, and nearly impossible to defeat through conventional military action. But they had one weakness. They targeted civilizations based on specific characteristics. Species that were too dependent on others for survival were eliminated first. Independent civilizations that could function alone were often ignored until much later in the process. The humans faced an impossible choice, Grextal continued. Warn the galaxy and watch everyone die together, or remove themselves to force rapid adaptation. The files contained humanity's internal debates about this decision. The arguments had raged for years among their leadership. Many humans had opposed the withdrawal, believing they should stand and fight alongside their allies. But the research was clear. If humanity remained, they would become the primary target. Their advanced technology and central role in galactic affairs made them the most dangerous civilization from the convergence perspective. Eliminating humanity would cause cascading failures that would destroy everyone else. Dr. Minho's final report was the most damning. Simulation results confirm that united resistance under current conditions has zero probability of success. Galactic civilization must be restructured or it will not survive. The restructuring had begun the moment humanity vanished. Forced to become independent, other species developed capabilities they never knew they possessed. The Zeltharians created new trade networks without human infrastructure. The Catherians advanced their medical technology beyond anything they had achieved before. Even the current military crisis was serving a purpose. Species that had relied on human peacekeeping were developing their own defense capabilities. The hard lessons of the past year were making them stronger. But was it enough? Admiral Kexathara brought disturbing news from the frontier. Scout ships had made contact with Convergence Advance Forces. The results were not encouraging. They are unlike anything in our databases, she reported. The entities appear to exist partially outside normal space-time. Our weapons pass through them without effect. Their weapons ignore our shields and armor. The few ships that survived encounters reported similar experiences. The convergence forces seemed immune to conventional physics. They moved through solid matter, ignored energy shields, and struck with weapons that targeted fundamental forces. However, Kexthera continued, we noticed something interesting. They appear confused by our current defensive arrangements. Our scattered, independent responses do not match the patterns they expect. This was the first hopeful news in months. The convergence entities were programmed to fight galactic civilization as it had existed before humanity's departure. The new, fragmented resistance was forcing them to adapt their tactics. But adaptation took time, and time was something the galaxy desperately needed. In the hidden laboratories of human space, Dr. Young-Soo worked frantically on humanity's own preparations. The sacrificial plan had always included this phase: remove themselves from galactic society, then prepare for their own convergence battle. His research logs, found years later, revealed the scope of humanity's sacrifice. They had not simply hidden during the galaxy's crisis. They had been fighting their own war against convergence forces that approached from a different vector. Convergence entities attack on multiple fronts simultaneously, Young-Soo had written. While primary forces engage galactic civilization, secondary forces target isolated species. We cannot help our friends and protect ourselves at the same time. Humanity had chosen to face the secondary attack alone. Their advanced technology and unified response made them the ideal force to handle the convergence flanking maneuver. But the cost would be enormous. The final piece of the puzzle came from Dr. Yunji's encrypted personal journal. She had been one of the architects of the withdrawal plan, and her notes revealed the emotional toll it had taken on human leadership. We are asking our people to become pariahs, she wrote, to sacrifice everything we have built with our galactic friends. Many will never forgive us for this choice. But if we succeed, there will be a galaxy left to forgive us. The plan was working, but barely. Other species were adapting faster than the convergence entities expected. Military resistance was becoming more effective as coordination improved. Most importantly, the galaxy was learning to function without depending on any single species for survival. Speaker Vorthak read the human files with a mixture of admiration and grief. Humanity had saved the galaxy by destroying their place in it. They had chosen isolation and blame rather than watch everyone die together, but the war was far from over. The main convergence fleets were still approaching. Advance forces had penetrated deep into inhabited space. The Devourer attacks were intensifying as the entities tested galactic defenses, and somewhere in human space, humanity fought their own desperate battle against forces that nobody else could see. The truth was finally clear. Humanity had not abandoned the galaxy. They had given it the only gift that mattered in the face of cosmic destruction: the strength to stand alone. The question now was whether that gift would be enough to survive what was coming. The convergence arrived like a wave of darkness across the galaxy. Admiral Kexathera watched from the bridge of her flagship as impossible shapes emerged from the void between stars. The entities defied description. They seemed to exist in more dimensions than normal space could contain, shifting between forms that hurt to observe directly. "All fleets, this is Admiral Kexathera," she broadcast across the galaxy-wide defense network. "The convergence has begun. Remember your training. Stay independent. Do not rely on others for survival." It was strange advice for a military commander. Usually, armies succeeded through coordination and mutual support. But the past year had taught them painful lessons about independence. Species that tried to recreate the old human-led alliances failed quickly. Those that developed self-reliant tactics survived longer. The first wave hit the outer colonies. Draconian defense fleets engaged convergence forces using tactics they had developed during the year of crisis. Instead of coordinated battle groups, they fought as independent squadrons. When one unit was destroyed, others continued fighting without coordination failure. It worked better than anyone had expected. The convergence entities seemed confused by the scattered resistance. Their weapons were designed to exploit the interconnected command structures of traditional galactic military forces. Independent units were harder to predict and eliminate. On Kythera Prime, Dr. Velthari coordinated the evacuation of research facilities. The convergence targeted centers of learning and technology first. But the past year had forced scientists to distribute their knowledge across multiple locations. Critical research was no longer concentrated in vulnerable installations. "Convergence forces approaching Research Station 7, reported his assistant. "Estimated time to contact 30 minutes. "Continue the data transfer," Velthari ordered. "If we lose the station, the backup sites will maintain the research." This redundancy was another lesson learned during humanity's absence. The old system of centralized knowledge had made entire scientific disciplines vulnerable to single attacks. Now every major discovery was copied across dozens of independent facilities. The convergence entities reached the research station and began their systematic destruction. But instead of eliminating crucial knowledge, they found only one node in a distributed network. The scientific community continued functioning, even as individual facilities were lost. Speaker Vorthak coordinated the defense from Nexus Prime, but his role was different now. Instead of commanding unified forces, he facilitated communication between independent military groups. Each species fought according to their own strengths rather than following a single strategy. "Zeltharian fleets report successful hit-and-run attacks on convergent supply lines," his communications officer reported. "Vaxian defense platforms are holding Sector 12. Etherian scout ships have located 3 convergent staging areas." The diversity of approaches was confusing the convergence forces. They had fought similar battles across cosmic history, always against civilizations that followed predictable patterns. This galaxy was different. Instead of unified resistance, they faced hundreds of different tactical approaches, but the cost was enormous. Entire star systems disappeared as convergence weapons unmade the fundamental forces that held atoms together. Billions of beings died as planets were reduced to component particles. The galaxy that had existed for centuries was being systematically erased. Then something unexpected happened. Long-range sensors detected massive energy discharges from human space. The signatures were unlike anything seen before, suggesting weapons that manipulated space-time itself. But the targets were not in the galaxy's inhabited regions. Captain Thexara, investigating the signals, made a disturbing discovery. The energy patterns suggest humanity is engaged in major military action, but they are fighting something we cannot detect with our sensors. The truth was revealed when communication arrays finally penetrated the electromagnetic interference surrounding human territory. Humanity was fighting their own war against convergence forces that had approached from a different direction. Dr. Young-Su's final transmission, recorded as his research station was destroyed by convergence weapons, explained the situation. Secondary convergence fleets targeted humanity directly. We engaged them beyond the galactic rim to prevent breakthrough to inhabited space. Casualties are severe, but the flanking attack has been stopped. Humanity had been fighting alone for over a year. While the galaxy struggled with its independence, human fleets had been dying in dark space to protect worlds that no longer acknowledged their existence. The sacrifice was staggering. Human colonies throughout the galaxy reported massive population losses. Their military was reduced to a fraction of its former strength, but they had succeeded in stopping the convergence secondary assault. This revelation changed everything. The galaxy's species finally understood the true scope of humanity's sacrifice. They had not simply withdrawn from galactic society, they had taken responsibility for the most dangerous part of the convergence battle, facing it alone while their former friends learned to survive independently. The main convergence assault continued for months. Galactic civilization fought desperately for survival, using the independence and diversity that humanity's departure had forced them to develop. It was chaotic, inefficient, and costly. But it was also unpredictable enough to confuse entities that had destroyed countless civilizations using proven methods. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Convergence forces that expected unified resistance found themselves facing constantly changing tactics. Species that had relied on human leadership developed their own innovative approaches to warfare. The galaxy's response was too diverse and independent for the convergence to counter effectively. The breakthrough came when Etherian scientists discovered that convergence entities existed in a quantum state that made them vulnerable to certain types of interference. But the discovery required advanced technology that only humanity possessed. For the first time in over a year, the galaxy needed to contact human space. Speaker Vorthak personally led the diplomatic mission, knowing that humanity might refuse to help after being abandoned for so long. The response came quickly. Not the cold mechanical voice that had rejected all previous contact, but the warm, tired voice of Ambassador Deho. "Hello, old friends," he said. "We have been waiting for you to call." The reunion was emotional but brief. Humanity immediately shared the technology needed to exploit the convergence vulnerability. Within weeks, weapons based on human quantum manipulation theories were being distributed across galactic defense forces. The final battle was unlike anything in recorded history. Convergence entities that had seemed invincible began to destabilize. When hit with quantum interference weapons, their ability to exist outside normal spacetime became a weakness when that existence was disrupted. But victory came at a terrible price. The galaxy's population was reduced by half. Entire civilizations had been wiped out. The economic and political structures that had maintained galactic society for millennia were gone forever. Humanity emerged from their isolation as a shadow of their former selves. Their losses during the secondary campaign had been catastrophic. Entire colonies were empty ruins. Their technology was damaged beyond repair. Their population was scattered across refugee camps and temporary settlements. The galaxy they returned to was unrecognizable. Species that had once depended on human leadership now possessed their own advanced technology and military capabilities. The careful balance of power that had maintained peace was replaced by a more chaotic, but also more resilient network of independent civilizations. Speaker Vorthak met with Ambassador Deho on Nexus Prime 6 months after the convergence was defeated. The space station had been rebuilt, but it was smaller now. The grand chamber where hundreds of species once gathered was replaced by a simple meeting room for the survivors. "Was it worth it?" Vorthak asked. "The cost of teaching us independence?" Daiho looked older than his years. The war had aged all of them. "Ask me again in 50,000 years," he replied, "when the next convergence arrives and finds a galaxy that can survive without depending on any single species." The memorial built on Nexus Prime honored not just the dead, but the sacrifice humanity had made to save galactic civilization. The inscription was simple: to those who left, so others could learn to stand alone. Humanity never fully recovered their former position in galactic society. They had paid too high a price for the galaxy's survival, but they had succeeded in their ultimate goal. The next time convergence entities arrived, they would find civilizations that could fight independently, think creatively, and survive without relying on others for protection. The galaxy was stronger for being broken apart and rebuilt. The cost had been terrible, but the alternative would have been extinction. In his private quarters, Daeho kept a photograph of the old council chamber, full of delegates from dozens of species working together in harmony. It was a beautiful sight, but also a dangerous one. That harmony had been built on dependence, and dependence was vulnerability. The new galaxy was harsher, more chaotic, but also more resilient. It was the galaxy humanity had chosen to create through their sacrifice.